Hello, everybody, and welcome to your introduction to Raisin in the Sun, one of the best plays I've ever read in my life. It's certainly one of my favorite things to teach. It's probably my second favorite play and thing to teach. My first one will be Streetcar Named Desire, just because I love that play, and hopefully we'll be reading that at the end of this year. But let's talk about Raised in the Sun. It is one of the most important American plays ever written for so many reasons. First of all, we know this. It was written by a 16, 17-year-old girl, Lorraine Hansberry, and it was loosely based off her life. A lot of the things that are going to occur in the play occurred to her and her family. In researching her, we'll find out that her father was a very important person, and he did not tolerate the racism and the oppression that was taking place at that time for African Americans, for Black people. So he actually fought against it. And one of the things he did was he moved into a white neighborhood where they were not supposed to go, the Black people, right? They were told to stay away. And he did that. So this play is actually a lot of it has to do with her life. You're going to see that the characters are going to do just that. They're going to attempt to buy a house, and maybe they do, I don't want to give it away, in a white neighborhood, and they're a Black family. This takes place in the 1940s, the late 1940s, near the end of World War II and afterwards. Very importantly, Lorraine Hansberry, the author of this play, she really wanted you to understand the theme of her play before you even read a line. And the way she was able to do that, it was very deft and expert, was she put a Langston Hughes poem named Harlem, which we're going to go over in a moment, in the beginning of the play. It was the introduction to her play. So you read this, and when you understand the theme of the poem itself, that's basically telling you what the theme of the play is going to be. So you cannot understand the play without understanding the poem, all right, and understanding the theme of this poem. So let's talk about this right now. I'm going to put it up. Again, it's called Harlem. Allow me to present it to you. Give me 1 second, please. Present. Okay, so we're looking at this right now, and it is Harlem by Langston Hughes. So let's talk about this now. Normally, you know what? I'm not going to do my normal thing. I'm going to read through it line by line. And we're going to talk about it. You know what? I will do it normally. I'm going to read through it once, just straight through. No dissecting it, no analyzing it. And then after I read it through once, I'm going to ask you to think about it. And then we'll come back. And this is the way you should do any poems that you come across. You read it once or twice, then you come back and you just break it down line by line and try to understand what's going on. So let's see. Harlem by Langston Hughes. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? Wow, that's a very powerful poem. And I mean, think about it. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines. And it is wildly powerful. It's one of Langston Hughes' most famous poems. It's one of my favorites by him. Now, of course, you never have to like any of the things I teach you. You just have to understand them. So when it comes to Langston Hughes, what was it that he was trying to say about society at that time and what society was doing to certain individuals, specifically to Black people at the time? So let's look at this. What happens to a dream deferred? Now, we all know what dreams are. What does it mean to defer something? Now, when you defer something, it means you put it off. You put it away. You put it into the future. And in some cases, it never gets done. Now, for example, a real life example, when I was in college, I took out a bunch of college loans. Now, I had those loans deferred, which meant I didn't have to pay them while I was in college, right? I had to pay them. I started paying them when I got out. And then when I got out of college, I didn't have a really good job or make a lot of money. I continued to defer my loans. And eventually those loans came, which meant I had to do it at some point. Now, what happens to a dream deferred? What are they talking about? Now, think about what dreams are. Dreams are those things that we all have, which give us something wonderful to look forward to in the future. Now, I want to point something out to you. You guys are all very young. You're sophomores in high school, 15, 16 years old, right? So you have a ton of dreams, right? Dreams about your future families, your future jobs, your future wealth, your future status in life, right? So you're dreaming about all these things and you're saying to yourself, I really want these things in my life. Well, what does a dream do for you? Think about this. Those dreams do two things for you, in my opinion. I mean, there's probably more, but there's two things I can think of. And let's talk about myself. I'm 46 years old. I still have, I've accomplished a lot of my dreams, right? I have a lovely wife. I have great kids. I have a nice home. I have a good career that I'm happy at. I think I'm pretty good at it. I like helping people. It's one of my dreams was to help young people to become, to realize their potential, right? So I've accomplished those dreams. But that's not the end for me. If that was the end for me, life would be pretty darn boring, would it not? I mean, think about it. If I had nothing more to work for, to dream towards, then every day would just be a daily grind. I would get up, do my thing, nothing to look forward to, nothing in my future, and it would be very boring and awful. The other thing about dreams is not only do they give me something to look forward to, they give me something to plan on. And they give me something to work towards. I'll tell you a dream of mine. I'm 46 years old. This is not my only career, I think. I think when I'm done teaching in about 10 years, I'm going to do something else. I don't know what it is yet, but my dream is to take on a whole new career. Will I have to go back to graduate school and get another degree? I might. So once I figure out what that second dream is, then I'm going to figure out how to accomplish it, and I'm going to work towards that. Another dream that my wife and I have, I told you we have a home. We live in Montclair. We're very happy with it. But another dream that we have is either to buy a summer house one day, maybe upstate in Lake George or in the Adirondacks, somewhere around there, or maybe if we don't go for the summer house dream, which is a big dream for us, at the very least, I have a lot of dreams of traveling all over the world. I want to check out so many different places. I've got to go to Africa. I've got to go to Asia. I've got to go to South America. I've got to go to Antarctica. There's all these places that I'm dreaming of. Now, here's the deal. Because I have those dreams, I have to work for those dreams, right? So I've got to work harder. I've got to save my money. And it's the working for those dreams that it almost makes it, the harder the dream you have, the more you have to work for it. And the more pride you'll feel when you realize that dream. When I get that summer house with my wife, when I go on those world vacations, it won't be because it was handed to me. Oh, no. It'll be because my wife and I worked even harder, right? We saved up our money, we made our plans, and we did those plans. Those are our dreams. They're not deferred, and they keep me going, always keep me going. But now let's go back to the poem. What happens to a dream deferred? Think about this. In the 1940s and 50s, what was it like to be a Black person in America? Think about this. They were not allowed to live in the same neighborhoods with white people in many cases. And if they were treated very awfully, right? People would try to push them out. They would make the properties too expensive for them to buy. You'll learn more about this as we're reading this poem, right? So in many cases, another thing for African Americans, for Black people in the 1940s and 50s, is they didn't really have many opportunities for future success. In other words, they were told they were not made for college, and they were kept out of college, right? And they were told in many cases that there was only just a certain amount of jobs that they were available and given the chance to do. And there were oftentimes very menial labor jobs, like, chauffeuring people, or being a janitor, or being a nanny, or taking care of, white people's homes and families, and cooking for them and cleaning for them. So if you were a person at this time, if you were an African American, a Black person at this time, and you were told, your dreams are meaningless, you have to put those off. You can't have a home. You can't go to college. You can't have a summer house. You can't have extra cars. You can't buy your wife beautiful jewelry and your kids, great toys and whatnot. Why? Because they don't belong to you. So imagine, and this is what he's trying to talk about. What is it like to be in this situation, to grow up and be told your dreams are not going to happen? They're deferred. Sorry, buddy. It's not ever going to happen. We're going to take your dreams and we're going to stick them off to the side, and you're never going to realize them. So the purpose of this poem, and more importantly, the purpose of the play, is what does that do to a person when you do that to them, when you defer their dreams? And worse than that, not only were Black people told, you don't have dreams. Your dreams mean nothing. You can't realize them. You're not going to be allowed to attempt them. But on the flip side of that, they had to watch the white people in America doing these things, given these chances, being sent to college, right? Think about what it would be like to be to be able to go through all the clubs and try different things as you're growing up. Try skiing, try tennis, try golf, try music class, all these wonderful things. And Black people were told, no, those aren't for you. Sorry. So what would it do to them? This is the purpose of this poem. So let's read it. So what happens to a dream deferred? Now, does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? In other words, good way of saying that. These are all metaphors, right? Actually, that's a simile, like a raisin in the sun. In other words, if you're a Black person in the 1940s and you have this dream, a Black guy that you want to, become a doctor, or maybe you want to become a lawyer, right? And help a lot of people, but also become rich so that you can have a nice life and share things with your family. And you have that dream. And then as you grow up, you realize, you know what, I'm Black. They're not going to let me achieve this dream. It's only for the white people. What happens to that dream? Does it just dry up like a raisin in the sun? In other words, does it just kind of fade away in the background for you? Whatever. I wanted that, but they tell me I can't have it, so it's not going to bother me that much. Or does it fester like a sore and then run? Think about what a sore on your body, on your arm or something like that. If you get a sore and it festers, that fester means it just gets worse and worse and worse and then run. Think about what it would be like if a sore runs, all the pus and nastiness come out on you. That's a really terrible thing. So, metaphorically speaking, what happens to a dream inside a person who's told that dream can never happen? Does it fester within them? Does it get worse and worse? Do they get more and more upset because they can have it, and also because they see other people getting their dreams? And not for nothing, what makes a white person better than a Black person? The answer is nothing. Just as intelligent, just as much as a chance to do well and to realize these dreams and to be a happy person and whatnot. There's no difference. It was only that white people were keeping Black people down because they wanted it all for themselves, of course. So let's continue. Does it stink like rotten meat? Think about that. Have you ever thrown away a piece of meat that you didn't cook into the garbage can, and you didn't, bag it up and throw it away that night, and you come the next day and you open up that garbage and you get that awful smell, and it gets worse and worse and worse over time? Think about that. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it get worse over time? The longer it's deferred, the longer they tell you you can't have what you want and what you deserve, by the way, as an American and as a human being. You deserve everything. That everybody deserves a chance in this country and in the world, of course, because we're all equal. Does it stink like rotten meat? In other words, does it get worse and worse, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? That's an interesting one. Leave a syrupy sweet out and it gets crusty and sugared over. That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. So does it dry up and disappear? Does it fester and get worse? Does it stink and also grow worse and more awful to the person who has it? Or does it crust and sugar over? So does it kind of encapsulate you and get into this nasty crustiness and make it and you more and more unhappy and worse? Look at the last two. Does it sag like a heavy load? Think about a heavy load. Take a 10-pound weight and hold it for a minute. It's for walk down the street up and down for a while. It's okay, you can deal with it. But as time goes on, the longer you hold it, the longer you walk, what happens? That weight gets heavier and heavier to the point where it actually bears you down and you can't go any farther and you have to set it down. Guys, this is what Langston Hughes was trying to say. Is that what happens to a dream deferred, to a person who has wonderful dreams of their life and society says, no, you are not equal to everybody else? Does it sag like a heavy load? Does that dream start to weigh on them and get worse and worse? And then the last one, or does it explode? In other words, and I think this is what's going on in this play at least, and for a lot of people, unfortunately, does it explode? For some people, when you hold them down and you don't let them have equality of chances and choices, right? but everybody else does, So in other words, a black person in the 1940s, a black guy. In fact, let's talk about our main character. Walter Lee is our main character in our play, and we're going to meet him today, and we're going to find out this is exactly what's been happening to Walter Lee his entire life. Walter Lee is full of dreams, and wait until you hear his dream. His dream is fantastic. Walter wants to own his own business, and he wants to, by the way, he doesn't want to own his own business just so that he can be rich or so that he can exploit people, take people's money and kind of, overcharge and whatnot. No. He wants to help the people in his neighborhood by selling them things that they need. And on the flip side, he wants to make money and become successful so that he can share it with his family and himself. It's not a selfish dream. And pay attention throughout this play. Walter Lee is not selfish. He does not want this business to be successful just for himself. Oh, no. He wants to be successful for his family. He wants to share it with his son and his wife and his sister and his mother. And he wants everybody in his family to get better. He wants his dreams to come true, and he deserves them. But as you see, as we read through this, his dreams are being deferred by white society. They will not let him do anything more than his crappy job of being a chauffeur. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a chauffeur, but for Walter, it is not enough because he wants more. And he is literally told by society, you can't have it. You're not good enough for it. You can't go to college. You can't get this job. You can't even walk down certain streets or live in certain neighborhoods because of the color of your skin. So what does this do to Walter throughout the play? The answer, let's talk about it. Let's go through the poem again. It festers in him, his dreams, and you're going to see that. It does run like a sword. It gets worse and worse, and you're going to see it actually starts to drive him crazy. This idea that his dreams are being deferred, that he can't have what he wants in his life. And he has the intelligence and the ability to go out and get it. He's just told you're not allowed to. Now, does it stink like rotten meat? Does it start to get worse and worse? Yes, it does. And you'll see by the end of the play, it will almost cause him to go insane. And I'm worried about him. I'm worried about anybody in this life, that when you hold things back on somebody, when you tell them they can't have what they deserve or what they want, oftentimes it gets so bad where they might just get to the bottom. It might just explode. And Walter Lee, a black man in the 1940s, if he explodes, if he goes out and he loses his cool, well, then that's very bad for him, because white society is going to look at him and say, look, see, he can't handle society. Look, he's exploding. But it's like, wait a minute, you're doing that on purpose. That's the point. That's why they do it. They hold people down, wait until they explode with anger, and then say, look, they can't handle society. But the reason why they're exploding is because of what you are doing to them. Not because that's the way they are, but it's because you're forcing them to it, and it's a very dangerous thing. Does it crust over and sugar like a syrupy sweet? Does it get worse and worse and worse until it kind of encapsulates you and crushes you with its own weight, or like suffocates you with it? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Does it keep getting worse and worse and worse until you can't handle it? Or does it explode? Now, that's what I'm worried about in this play, that Walter Lee, our main character, that it is going to make him explode. And if he explodes, there's a chance that he could be killed. He could go to prison. He could hurt somebody around him, hurt his family. And I don't mean physically, but emotionally. In fact, you're going to see what is hopefully, and I don't want to give it away because we want to read this play from beginning to end. I don't want to tell you anything, but what's the one thing that Walter Lee has that he can fall back on to help him with this fact that his dreams are being deferred and held back, and he can't do what he wants and what he desires? It's his family. His family is the only thing that he has which can keep him sane. But even they are going to have a hard time. You're going to see his wife, Ruth, is going to have a very hard time talking to him, and he's even going to say at one point, there's a great quote where he says, it's all these things that I want are driving me crazy, baby. I want to give you pearls. I want to give you a car. I want to give my son a home. I want to have a mansion. I want to have vacations. I want to travel the world. I want to have a secretary. I want to have employees. He wants all these things, and he says not being able to have them is driving him crazy. His mom, who came from slave times, or she's born in the 1880s, 1890s, so if not slave time, certainly indentured servitude and whatnot, when it was much worse. She doesn't see it the same way as Walter. She needs to at some point, she's going to have to empathize with him And we'll see what happens there. Now, Walter also has a sister. Her name is Benitha. And you're going to see that Benitha, unlike Walter, is actually given a chance to do some of her dreams. She is in medical school, which is an amazingly awesome thing for a young woman and an African-American woman in the 1940s. A Black woman to be in medical school shows just how hard. I mean, what she would have had to have gone through in order to get there shows you that she is a fighter. She doesn't let anything keep her down, and she keeps going. But she's able to do these things, become a doctor, and then you're going to find she does all these different clubs, horseback riding, photography, all these things that Walter doesn't get a chance to do. All his dreams are deferred. We're going to find out Benitha's are not, because the family works to help her have these dreams. And Benitha, is going to have a hard time also understanding why Walter is having this problem, why he is drying up like a raisin in the sun, or festering like a sore and then run, or why it's stinking like rotten meat for him, or crusting over like a syrupy sweet, or why it's sagging like a heavy load, or maybe even worse, that it might explode on Walter. And that's what this whole play is about. The fact that Walter's dreams are deferred and how it affects him. So back it up a little bit. Why did Langston Hughes write this poem? Because he wanted the world to know that this was what was happening across the board to Black people in America, and that it was destroying their soul, their psyches, and it was just making things worse. And that if they were just given the ability to chase after their dreams, they would not only be able to realize them, but they would be awesome members of society, because that's what they are. They're just regular people as well. And he wanted white America and all America to see, and the world, everybody in the world, that this is what happens when you do this awful thing to people, when you oppress people racially and prejudiciously, that you are going to make it so that their dreams get deferred. And what happens when you defer people's dreams? It's going to drive them crazy over time, and it's going to make them possibly do bad things. That isn't their fault, but they have no other outlet for their feelings and their desires, that everything is being held down on them and it's crushing them. So with all that being said, we are going to start reading A Raisin in the Sun. And we are going to see just how Walter Lee deals with this oppression and prejudice of him, and how his family first has to notice that this is what's going on, and they have to work with him to help him so that he doesn't sag like a heavy load, or he does not explode. Really well done, everybody. I'm looking super forward to reading this play with you. Like I said, it might even be my favorite play. I don't know. It might be tied up there with Raisin, with Streetcar Named Desire. And I'll tell you what, in both plays, I get really angry about how the characters are treated and about just society itself. So as we're reading this, if I get mad, it's not at you. Trust me, it is at the society that did this and made and still does in many cases to people in this country, and that everybody deserves the same chance at success and happiness. Enjoy the play, everybody. Have a great day.